I think that what is key for development is the fact that you have movement of people, goods, capital, and ideas.
The World Bank's economists believe the history of China has lessons for us today. This temple commemorates Admiral Zheng He. During the Ming Dynasty, he commanded a vast fleet which voyaged as far afield as Africa and Arabia. But in the year 1480, imperial courtiers scrapped the mighty Star Fleet and destroyed all records of its journeys. What was then the biggest economy in the world turned its back on sea power and trade, and for the next 500 years did little but stagnate.
If you don't hitch yourself to the bandwagon of international trade, you will fail. We are not aware of any countries that have done well that have not opened themselves up and benefited from international trade.
Within a generation, European sailors, led by the Portuguese, were exploring the world's oceans. Trade and economic power shifted to the Atlantic, to Europe and the Americas.
Obviously, the opening of world trade for Europe was the beginning of European prosperity.
I mean, when you look at where GDP growth is coming from, it tends to come from coasts. It is hugely important. Countries that are, cities that are in the interior are hugely disadvantaged by distance, cost, lack of access to ideas from the outside.
As Western economies grew, the Industrial Revolution sucked people into cities like London, Paris, and New York.
That was the story of Europe and America in the 19th century. Big slums that our great-grandparents flocked to, and over the course of a generation or two, they crawled out of that condition. Without cities, they couldn't have done it.
The lesson of history seems to be that market forces, free trade, and the free movement of people to cities are keys to development.
Has shown that since independence, people have discontinued
But
fighting.
he does have, he does have a degree of moral authority in Africa.
I think you can have moral authority, but the only problem is that the African leaders, the dictators, are so stubborn. The dictatorial infrastructure is so entrenched that this business of thinking, well, I will say, well, open your face, I'll greet you, you will change your country, doesn't work in Africa.
Is click
broader.
Condensed on voice print. Coming up after this show is an evening of classic Hollywood films, starting with Audio Cinema Playhouse. And now let's return to Canly Condensed and our short story, The Lava Pit, by Caleb Zimmerman. Landon and Jenna want to have a party, but don't want to meet at the usual downtown restaurant. Now that they have a house, they should have a house party. Carl assumes this makes sense. The C train stops 8 stations south of the lava.